Peace Collective. I have this crazy story for y'all. It's called a psych ward visit that led to clarity. Okay, I am not crazy. Let me sit there and put this out in the beginning of the video. I knew I had this inner knowing, this instinctual knowing that I had to go to a psych ward. So right now, Spirit has led me on this journey. I have basically been homeless, living on the road since the end of 2023. And, I've had breaks in between and people who supported me in my journey, so grateful for all the souls who looked out. With that being stated, now I'm in a shelter. Okay. And before then, I was staying with a friend who, was so kind to be used by the divine to look out, after me for a year and a half. But Spirit was like, it's time for you to leave that situation. So I'm like, okay, no problem. I was used to being by myself. I could have kept myself secluded. I was spending a lot of solo time, which doing the work that I do spiritually, it's very important for me to integrate my own energies and, really just to process, self-processing, right? And have my beautiful time with the divine. Now, going into the shelter, I'm surrounded by a lot of people. And people, when you're healing, when you're doing the work, when you are just blessed by the divine, they want to touch up on you. They want to introduce themselves. They want to have conversations. People are trying to pull on your energy. They are trying to, fill whatever, void they have going on there. Some are lonely. Some are really toxic. Some are just, straight up evil. Some of them are just out of their mind. So my life has been filled in the past with a lot of trauma. And I've lived my 36 years, almost 37 years of life from a fight or flight standpoint. My nervous system could not take any more. I was at the edge. And so there's this expansion that's trying to happen to my gifts during this time. Okay. And so I knew I could not do it in the homeless shelter. And so instinctively, I knew that I had to go to a hospital because this is the only place that I can get some solo space, right? And I was having intense panic attacks that for the last, the 2 weeks building up to this visit, kept getting more intense. And panic attacks, if you've ever had them, feel like you're dying, okay? It felt like I was drowning. And if someone's going to try to rescue me, or someone typically who is drowning, they tend to typically turn on the rescuer, right? And so, because they're afraid for their life, putting their life and the life of the person that's rescuing them in danger. So I knew I needed to go to the psych ward. They lie. I'm telling them I'm there for panic attacks and I'm just trying to be supervised, so I don't hurt myself or I don't hurt anyone, because when you feel like you can't breathe, it's not a not a dangerous thing. It's not a good thing. Cancel the not dangerous thing. So I made bullet points and I had my little note, okay? Because I am so opposed to Western medicine. But one of the things that Spirit has been showing me in my journey is I've had to experience things, okay, firsthand, to really know what those that I'm going to be healing need, okay? And so, oh my God, they lied on me. So much. So let's get into these bullet points. First and foremost, if someone is asking, and I'm not talking about someone that's really out of their mind. I'm talking about someone who is actively at the end of their rope with their parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, how do we reset the person's nervous system in a healthy environment? These points that I'm bringing up are the things that I realized it's very much wrong with Western medicine, and it's actively built to keep people insane or to snap so they can drug people, okay? Now, the first one is the clothing. You are put in this hospital gown that is not a comfortable material, okay? And you're put in this hospital gown and you're going crazy trying to find the buttons to clip it up, right? And you're not comfortable there. They have these socks that have rubbers on the front and the back. Why you need rubber on the front and the back? Okay. And so you have these basically sheer, like nylon stockings type underwear that make no sense. Right? And so if someone is going through, whether it's panic attacks or whatever reason they went to the psych ward for actual help, not because they're plagued by, evil spirits and are not at the helm of their lives and they're crazy, those people really just need to be in a ward. You're not creating an environment, a healthy environment to what they're feeling in their body. Okay, so how can they feel safe in their body if they're uncomfortable? For me, yes, clothing can very much, constricted clothing can very much cause a panic attack for me. And because I feel like I'm being invaded in my energetic space, right, by things that I don't want. So you don't need to be feeling like your clothes is an enemy to you. You get what I'm saying? Purposely triggering folks, okay, to drug them. These doctors get paid, okay, to push drugs on people. And these triggers that they're doing is an example is the band, right? You're wearing, and not my unicorn bracelet, love my unicorn bracelet, right? But I had on a hospital band. It's plastic, it's uncomfortable. You're wearing it there the entire time. Your body starts to sweat around it, right? So now it starts getting itchy. Again, talking about the clothes being uncomfortable, this is now also tending to the aspect that someone is uncomfortable in their physical body, in their physical environment, right? The band made me have a panic attack. I knew it was time. I couldn't, it was the night before I left. I couldn't sustain, my spirit could not sustain the band, right? It felt like you're labeling someone. You're labeling them and you're keeping track of them like they're hurt. This is where now if you act up, if you're snapping because, well, first of all, you can't take off the band. But now if you're snapping because you're irritated because of the band, not that I did, by the way, just saying I can see how someone would. Oh, okay, you're crazy. They restrain you, okay? And then they, can force drugs upon you. All right. This is where now they're trying to take away your free will. First and foremost, I did not take no drugs because I was against it. And outside of a sleeping pill, which I've done before, for the first night, because the night before I went into the psych ward, it was the most intense panic attacks I had. And I knew I was going to be coming down, but I didn't know if it was going to get more intense. So anyways, not only that, the setting is very depressing. It's like either white and grayish, like gray washed walls, with maybe a little bit of blue, okay? There's no comfort there. And so when I say depressing settings, what I was being shown is you have these people, and again, I'm not talking about the nut jobs that really need to be there. I'm talking about people who are actively looking for help and guidance, right, through these difficult moments within their lives, looking for a break, in their nervous system. You're not allowing them to go out and get grounded. If these people are really looking for help and afraid that they're going to hurt themselves because of depression, you're putting them in an environment that is already making them more depressed, okay? And so they can't get the sun, they can't go outside. And I'm not saying that, obviously for psych ward, the people that are there, I do believe that there should be a safety zone, right, where the people can escape if, they were let out. But I'm not talking about, again, the really crazy people. I'm talking about those that really are like seeking the help and guidance. And I'm reiterating this because it's important to understand who I'm speaking about, right? Those that just need a break because their traumas have been too much and they're super overwhelmed, you actively want them to go outside. You want them to ground. You want them to be able to receive the sun. You don't want them to be, sun deficient, vitamin D deficient, right? We are like flowers that need to ultimately bloom, need to bloom and be fed by the sun, right? This is where we're getting our rejuvenation. This is where a lot of the heaviness from life can actually be cleared away, right? When you are busy being present in the moment, you're hearing the birds chirping, you're seeing the flowers, you're seeing, the butterflies flying by, right? This is the environment that you want to cultivate for people, not walls, in restrictive clothing that's uncomfortable, okay? And then, you don't even provide hand soap, right? Which is disgusting, okay? And they lock things down. Like this is not conducive to someone's mental health, right? The next one we have is um you know being locked away again, and I feel like this is tending to the depressive setting. Like, you only have so much you can do, right? Which is usually walking the hallway or sleep and be in your room. And this keeps repeating the cycle of depression or whatever someone is dealing with, right? Um, and they're literally locking you away from what can ground you and what can allow your nervous system to actually breathe, because you want to be able to feel safe in the world, thus creating an environment where you truly can feel safe. But being outside, this is what needs to be cultivated. Invasion of privacy is another one, because they are pushing the doors every 15 minutes. They don't allow you to keep the door closed even if you haven't exhibited nonviolent behaviors, and they're checking every 15 minutes. They're coming around. So now you're becoming sleep deprived through this invasion of privacy. And so now it's a form of torture. If these people are stressed out and their nervous system needs a reset, why aren't you actively letting them get their rest? If it's that important to watch them, maybe put actual windows in the room so you can peep into the room to see what's going on while they're peacefully sleeping. Okay? Not that I would consent to that either. Okay? The next one is, there was activities coordinator. And this activity coordinator was playing the song Suicidal. Like, first of all, there's people there who have attempted suicide. There's people there who are struggling with the thoughts of wanting to end their life. The callousness and not being aware of what is going on with people to play a song like that and to be speaking the word suicidal when they're already dealing with spirits that ultimately want them to end their life, evil spirits. Okay? You're not helping the situation. A patient said something and I said something, and then I walked out of that activity room because how dare that staff, that gay, flamboyant staff. All right, I have nothing wrong with gay people, okay? But he must be so stuck up in his world that he didn't care about what was going on with his bangles. I'm sorry. That was very insensitive of that staff, and I make no apology for what I said. Now, this one was interesting because staff will definitely lie on patients. So they were trying to give me Wellbutrin. Now, the doctor asked me questions like, am I trying to harm myself? I'm like, no. Am I depressed? No. He started asking some questions about my past, certain things, digging into, like if I had children, things like that, and, asking if I was married, all different kind of stuff. And I said, Doc, these are just questions I don't want to answer. Now, with that, the doctor, and you have every right, okay, I just want to say here before I say what the doctor prescribed, you have every right to your privacy and what you don't want to relate to someone, okay? There, you can't have any kind of emotions, because I've been dealing with some things, I have 3 daughters that have been taken from me incorrectly by the system, okay? Because I've been, sexually violated in the past, okay? Numerous times when I was younger, okay? I was in a really toxic, negative situation with someone who was much more than just a narcissist and abuser. That was just pure evil. And my traumas were used against me to take my daughters away. And then he crafted a bunch of things to make me seem crazy, but really was like calling the cops, all types of different things. And so, the judge granted him custody because he got paid to take care of our youngest because of special needs. Well, I'm gonna say cancel our youngest, my youngest, because if you knew the full story. And I was forced to work 60 to 80 hours a week, okay, to provide. And I was dealing with carpal tunnel, all types of different things. So they were like, you don't have time and you have a lot of trauma. Bam, you can't be around the girls. So I was granted, like 12 hours a week. I went from 12 hours to 9 hours because he said I was getting in the way of their schooling, which I wasn't. And then it went from 9 hours to no hours because he was calling the cops, making reports, lying to the girls, saying that my neighbors were calling the cops, encouraging my middle one to scream and start a show. And when the cops would come out, my place was immaculate. It was clean. Dinner was ready. The girls had dinner on the table, all the stuff. And so the judge said, you're unhealthy for them. You need to go do therapy with them. Now, mind you, they're forcing me to work all these hours. I couldn't sustain those hours because I was dealing with carpal tunnel, which has been healed by the archangels. Thank you. We do this beautiful healing, services. If you're curious about it, check out the website. Okay. So anyways, the archangels, heal my hand from carpal tunnel. And then, and the reason why I'm saying this story is because you have to understand why I didn't want to talk about this, and I'm not going into the depths of the story either, right? Because it's just too much. We'll be here all day. And so, I was only working 40 hours. They were taking like basically more than half my check. I couldn't afford rent. I was surviving off of rice and beans, okay, at this time. And so I had no money to pay for supervised visits. I had no money to pay for a private lawyer. I mean, not lawyer, cancel that statement. Private therapist for me and the daughters. Because once their therapist found out about it, they were like, that it was a judge involved. They was like, you can't come to the therapy sessions no more. And I was already doing that with them. I called all therapists that my insurance covered within a 50-mile radius. Nobody would call me back. And when they did, they found out that the judge was involved, they would not take the case. Okay, so I'm in a situation where it's like spiritual attack after spiritual attack. So then I lose all visitation rights to my daughters, have to call him, or text him, and he's giving me 1 weekend a month and to see them in a public place for 2 hours under his supervision. Then I wind up, having to move out of the state that I was in. So I say all that to say that I tell the doctor, no, I'm observing my right to I don't want to talk about this. I'm like, there's, certain things that, cause sadness. So yeah, I deal with that. And he changes the diagnosis completely. Says that I'm suicidal, says that I'm depressed, and tries to put me on Wellbutrin. Now, if you know anything about Wellbutrin, it is basically akin to crystal meth. Okay, it is whether it's crystal meth's sister, cousin, uncle, aunt, mother, father, brother, whatever. Okay, I don't want it. My diet is vegan and raw vegan when I can be. Okay, so I say all that to say that he prescribes Wellbutrin because he changes my diagnosis. I'm there for panic attacks, and I'm like, all right. So I'm like, I don't just take anything. Can you give me the material on this drug? And so I look into it, and it's like all these side effects. I'm like, this is going to make the panic attacks worse. But then I read at the bottom of the paper, it says, oh, this drug can give you a false positive. So then I said, does this, drug have any methamphetamines? And they're like, no, there's none. So then I go to the nurse and I say, nurse, can you tell me what false positive this drug will, come up in a piss test, because I just don't put anything into my body, okay? And so she looks it up and she's like, it's crystal meth. So, and she's like, but it's structured differently. I don't care how it's structured. I'm coming here for panic attacks, and this doctor is trying to push Wellbutrin on me, which can derail the course of someone's life. Okay, from what I hear, people, have turned it into a powder, have snorted it, all types of different things. Okay, so I rejected. I'm like, because absolutely not. So I then have a visit with the doctor the next day, and the doctor's like, "You took it." I don't know if the one nurse that was condescending with me winds up saying, "Oh, well, just take the medicine and basically play by our rules, and you'll get out of here, sooner than later." I'm like, "No, absolutely not." So the doctor's like, "Yeah, you did at 5 o'clock." So now I'm arguing with this doctor, but not trying to really argue with the doctor because I knew that's not the place you want to start drama, okay? And so the doctor's like, "Yeah, you took it at 5 o'clock." And I'm like, "No, I didn't. Like, I know what I put into my mouth, and I haven't taken anything outside of the first night that I got here, which was trazodone and Benadryl to help me sleep, okay? And the only other thing I took there was like something for indigestion because I ate applesauce and it messed up my stomach. My diet, I can't really eat processed foods. So anyways, so you got staff lying on you. And this is where they're trying to trigger patients again to get you to take these pills that are very much addictive in nature to derail the course of someone's life. When someone is going to you for help as a healer, okay, you don't derail the course of someone's life by pushing crystal meth or whatever other drug, okay, that you are getting paid to push. And then want to sit here and reject addicts, want to sit here, the system rejecting addicts, the system, making addicts, destroying the lives of people, okay, who genuinely need help. And now they disregard them as the unwanted of society. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so overfeeding the patients, first of all, 3 meals, 3 snacks. Now, I get that a lot of people have parasites. First of all, do your parasite cleanses, y'all, and do it adequately to cleanse your body. But why do you need 3 full meals and 3 snacks? Okay, that is too much. And if someone's body is over processing, okay, all the food, they don't have time to actively sit with their thoughts, to sit in self-reflection. It's too full. It's too heavy. It's too heavy. It's creating a heaviness. You want people to feel lighter in nature, okay? Not heavier, not boggled down by processed and false foods. Okay? Even though for vegans though, they have better food than the shelter, I'm gonna tell you that. Okay. All right, so the next point was again drugging people like meth like drugs, but again, they're not even telling people, they're not even giving people, I just want to bring up this point, they're not giving people the material. The only reason why they gave me the material on the drug was because I asked for it, because I'm very particular with what goes into my environment. And the doctor, was very condescending when he found out that I wouldn't take the drug because he's like, "Well, you came here for help. You don't know what you're doing," because I'm telling him, that I'm doing yoga, that I'm not having the panic attacks no more, that I'm doing meditation, that I'm doing my breath work. I'm doing everything, which very much I have training, okay? Spiritual training. I don't need someone who's trained by a book, okay? I've been trained by spirit, okay, for all my life. And I've been trained by spirit. I don't need someone who lost their reasoning, okay, for even becoming a doctor in the first place. And as I said, reasoning, it was 2333, okay? I don't need someone who lost their touch with humanity and even the purpose as to why they entered the field in the first place. Now they're money motivated. You get what I'm saying? You go into a field with the doctor, I'm speaking about the doctor, to be a healer, and now you a drug peddler, you a drug dealer with a license, and you don't give a flying crap, try not to cuss, about the lives that you are derailing, because to you these people are nothing. They're worthless. They're scum of the street. They're dirt bags. So you have condescending doctors. And he was very condescending to me, and I just got quiet. And the next day we spoke, and he was like, "How you doing?" And I was like, "I'm fine." I was like, and then he was like, "All right." He was like, "Have a good day." I said, "You too." That was our consult. Okay, and then dirty facilities. How can someone feel like they can relax when you have toilet paper or tissue or whatever in the actual showers? Okay, maybe it looks like soggy dog wet food. All right, they're not cleaning this up. All right, people leaving their stuff, their old dirty garments, wet socks, all kind of different things. There's no respect. So you have these dirty facilities where people are using this. The bathrooms are a prison. The toilets are like a prison toilets. Everything is screwed down. Now, mind you, I do believe that there are certain people that do believe. Oh, excuse me. I do believe that there are certain people do need to be in these nut houses. But if anything can check you're crazy, then you're not crazy. But if you're there for actual help and there's a cry for help, they're going about this completely wrong. And the only activities they have is basically you can color, and TV. And they'll play, again, suicidal music and all types of stuff because you would think these people would have more common sense. I wasn't trained in the medical field, but I definitely have a lot more common sense. If somebody's telling me, oh, they're struggling with suicide, why would I sit here and play a song that says suicidal? Like, come on, think, use your brain. And then there's no actual group activity, right, where people are encouraged to meditate, where people are encouraged to do yoga, where people are encouraged to do self-reflection. You're not getting to the root cause of the issue. They are just actively, again, pushing drugs. All right, and I do want to address, there are some people who need the psych ward because they're not trying to get well. This is just, the malevolent spirit, evil spirit, getting out of hand, and maybe they got checked, by someone, something. And then there was another thing is, it's like Western medicine, what I've observed, you can't have any sadness, right? So I was talking about the story with my daughters. You can't have any sadness. You can't be angry. You can't be extremely happy, because if you're extremely happy, oh, you're manic, you're bipolar. If you're sad, if you're processing any kind of emotions, you're depressed. If you're angry, oh, well, you're violent and you're a person that needs to be, given drugs. You're supposed to be, like, to them, non-feeling, because that's what Western society is ultimately cultivating. Zombies. Walking zombies. Most of these people walking around, they're so doom scrolling all day, doing whatever. They're not actively processing the mind. You know what I mean? And their emotions. And it's and it's honestly disheartening that this is what Western medicine is crafting, and not even just Western medicine, because Western medicine is a big problem, but it's not the entire system. The entire system wants people who are so disconnected from themselves, because if you are connected to yourself, you are connected to spirit, and they don't want people who are connected to spirit. And then not listening to the patients. Sorry, I thought it stopped recording. I'm like, oh, like this is I'm supposed to have plenty of space. Excuse me. Not listening to the patient's voice, needs, and concerns. So I was telling the doctor, again, I'm doing yoga. I'm meditating. I'm doing breath work. I just needed to get away from all the energies at the shelter. I'm like, I'm not having these panic attacks. I was able to work with spirit to have a nervous system reset, right? And so I was able to integrate, these gifts and expansions that, is currently still happening, and will continue to happen for the rest of my life. But I've gone through so much trauma in the past that my nervous system could not take anymore. The spirit could not get closer to me because of that. Okay. Or expand my gifts, because I was literally at my rope's end. There's so many of you that have been at your rope's end, and Spirit saying save it to the end. Okay. But there's so many of you that have been at your rope's end that you don't know how to craft, right, environments or even activities that are going to help you ground and allow your nervous system to reset. And I just want to sit here and say, I am not the healer for disrespectful people. If you are here and you are trying to be disrespectful, honey, I am not. the one for you. Do not come to me. Do not inquire about my services. You will be rejected. It will not happen. I am here for those who are overwhelmed, for those who need guidance, and for those who need guidance in their journey and want insights from the divine. They need readings, from their ancestors. They need healing services. They need coaching services, that need someone who's been able to face her shadows, malevolent spirits, and overcome them, and to be able to get back into the helm of my own life. If you are a person that's overwhelmed, overstimulated, oversaturated, if you are, crying for help, I'm the healer for you. If you are lost and you need guidance in your journey, I am the spiritual consultant for you. I can be the coach for you. I don't do this alone. I do this with the divine in tandem with the archangels, the ancestral sacred elders, the ancestral sacred mothers, ancestral sacred sisters, the ancestors for the highest good, the shamanic elders, right? I have a beautiful, beautiful team, and we will work in tandem with your team to get you to where you need to be. I also want to speak about the bedding. Okay, they have the environment so cold. Okay, they don't even give you enough sufficient blankets. It's not even blankets, they're sheets. Okay, to feel warm. So now you're in a tense state when you're sleeping. You're not supposed to be tense when you're sleeping. Okay, I feel like you're supposed to have the warmth. You can have the coolness, you know what I mean, whatever temperature, but to have someone cold, a cold environment all the time, this is going to tense the body. If the body is tense, okay, the spirit can't relax. And the room setup, there was no door to the bathroom. It's like this big fucking padding. Okay, you can still see the legs of the other person in the bathroom, right? No no soap whatsoever. You had to use, your bathing soap, which was a little tiny thing. And then they give you, you know because the next point that's coming up is poisoning people through chemicals. They're giving you fluoride toothpaste, right? All these different types of things. Fluoride calcifies the third eye, your pineal gland. So they know what they're doing. And I'm not saying that the staff that work there know what they're doing. People may not have full conscious awareness, but look it up. Fluoride is a poison. They're not letting you bring your own stuff, and if you do, you know how many times I was ignored when I asked for my Hello toothpaste, like the last 2 days, because they wouldn't give it to me. I'm literally brushing my teeth with their horrible soft ass toothbrush and water constantly throughout the day, trying to make sure that my breath don't stink. Like, and that was hard when you're just doing it with a toothbrush and water. I'm just saying. So these are the bullet points that I wanted to bring, and now I want to speak about what the insights, because I was there and I got my nervous system reset, which was really beautiful, and so grateful to the divine. But I was getting a lot of downloads and really visions for what I want to do. My soul's purpose has been becoming more clear to me. Right? It's not just helping people. I want to start kind of like an organization, but in the private, not in the public, that is for individuals who, through, for individuals who need a nervous system reset, where we are into integrating, and I say we, me and the divine, are integrating, through holistic practices, meditation, yoga, body, spirit, mind, emotion, consciousness connection together to make a well-rounded program and skill sets and tools for people to be able to use in their day-to-day lives. Put these practices in to get them to the next level where they can feel safe within themselves to reset their nervous system. Resetting the nervous system is possible, and I'm so glad that the divine did it with me and that I was able to experience it. And through the years of training that I've had with spirit and these experiences, I've learned the things that work to get someone to a point where they're no longer on edge, right? And being being in these practices also, but being very self-aware of who you allow into your energetic field, because once you get to a certain point, you don't want to start inviting toxicity into your environment again, right? And understand that some of you gone through a lot of trauma, and for some, this is practices that are going to take years to get you to a certain state. But it's better to put in the work than to never put it in at all. Okay? And then for some of you, I would say for most of you, because no, I would say for all of you, once you integrate these practices in order to keep yourself grounded and to keep your nervous system calm, this is a lifelong practice. So these are skill sets that you're going to be able to take with you for the rest of your life, and also pass it down to your generations, your descendants, even to the ancestors who are still living and your friends. This is something that can spread like wildfire, that's rooted in techniques that have been crafted with a divine, that are rooted in ancestral ways, ancestral medicine. I am really excited to put this program, or this, I'm not gonna say the name just yet, but I'm gonna say program because it's not a program. This is gonna be like a retreat. I see it in my mind's eye. How long this is gonna be, how long it's gonna take to come into fruition, I don't know. But I do know that as I get certain things put in place, I will then say the name and open up for donations, because eventually it will evolve a physical place. It will evolve land and a lot of programs, holistic things where now people can come and get these services, and depending how well these donations go, it could be at a discounted cost, for those who actively need it, and really can't afford, $5,000. And then there may be the programs that are going to be $5,000. Like, I'm not limiting how any of this is going to go, but I do know that this is very much something that's being worked in tandem, and that they've been giving me kind of clues for a while. So I'm really excited that I kind of feel like things are kind of coming to a head. And even still, I don't know the next step ahead fully, but I do know that there's certain things that I'm meant to do to show up as a particular version of self. So thank you so much for those of you who stayed this entire message. I hope it was entertaining, but also insightful. Because again, this is going to be giving, rituals, how to do, spiritual energy hygiene, how to, feel more grounded within your body, how to have that spirit body connection. You can't be so well rounded in spirit that you're neglecting the physical vessel. Everything has to come together in a beautiful unison. And I'm understanding that, having the wisdoms and the insights, and to be able to speak with spirit, and to be able to speak with the ancestors, and to have, guidance and, clarity from the shamanic elders into, ancestral ways. This is something that I love what somebody said to me one day. It's like, kind of like a spiritual alchemist, right? They're taking really complicated formulas and they're making it simplified for the normal person to be able to ingest. That is what we are doing. That is what I am working with spirit. If you are not in tune with spirit, don't worry. We can get you to a place where you can start having your own experiences to whatever degree you're meant to have these experiences. But you can't have these experiences if you're not rooted within self, if your nervous system is too oversaturated and over convoluted that you can't even think, that you can't even breathe. Okay, so y'all, I am super excited. Again, thank you for tapping in. If you want to check out what I have thus far as services, please go to www.mamarain.org. That is literally mama, MAMA, rain, RAIN.org. Take care from me and spirit. Peace.